Hello guys, welcome to our third session of ECG Made Easy, and this is a sound check. So please tell me if my voice is audible and the volume is okay. And right now I have reduced the volume of the audio music. So is that working or the music is full loud volume? So please let me know in the comments. Ranjana, Priya. So as usual, we'll be starting soon and we'll start on time, and right now I'm just checking the sound and the PowerPoint slides and all, and we'll start shortly. And we'll start with a little bit of revision of the previous two lectures so that you can recall what we discussed last time, and it's like a smooth flow and smooth transition into the third lecture. Hello guys, welcome to live session of ECG Made Easy. Today is our third lecture and we'll be talking mainly on access and acute myocardial infarction, the different types of MIs and how they present clinically, the signs, symptoms and how we detect them on ECG and what to do once you detect them. So this is a very important lecture for you all. So please stay tuned, we'll be starting shortly. Okay guys, so I think we'll start, and I'm just waiting for the buffering to be over, and so that the PowerPoint become visible to all of you. Can you people hear me and also see the PowerPoint in full screen? Please type in the comments. Dr. Javed, Saurabh. Anybody, please tell me if the PowerPoint is visible. Yes, I know the is buffering. See, in the comments it is still the previous slide is going on, the PowerPoint has not come. So please tell me when the PowerPoint comes, then I will start. I'm not getting any feedback from you guys. Is the audio okay, and can everybody see the PowerPoint? Please type in the comments. I know it's a lot of buffering is there today also. It's supposed to be fiber connection FTTH and still 50 Mbps speed. So still they are not giving us good speed. So I presume that the PowerPoint is visible to all of you, and the audio is okay, and I'll start because it's already 8 o'clock. So today we'll be discussing electrocardiography, and today is the third lecture. Yes, so I can see the comments now. Rohan, Priya, Ranjana, Nikhil. So it's okay. So we are continuing. Thank you guys for the feedback. And in the previous lectures, we had discussed a lot about what ECG is, how we take it, and what the circle is. You have to remember this circle always, for 100 ECGs at least in your mind. You have to keep this circle, and this is a typo. This is 120 degree. By mistake, I will remove this chart picture tomorrow, and a new picture will be. This is 120, not minus 60. Okay, this is minus 60. So we have gone through all this. What is ECG? How do we take the ECG? What are the normal limb leads and augmented limb leads and anterior chest leads, and how we take the ECG on the right side, what a pacemaker is, and what is the function of the pacemaker. And we know the SA is the fastest firing pacemaker. It always keeps control of the rhythm of the heart, and when SA fails, the other pacemakers will take over. The next fastest pacemaker from the atrium or the AV node, they will take over, and once they fail, the AV or the AV node will take over, or the ventricles can start firing, because God has made our heart in such a way that it has to sustain life. So till the end, the heart will keep on firing, and without failing. Your heart is only thing that will not betray you. It will not ditch you anyway, anytime. So keep your heart healthy, eat healthy, think healthy, and focus on health and prosperity, and that's the secret to happiness. And so all these things we have discussed, that conducting system, and I had told you, like, SA node is there, then impulses stimulate the atrium, then they go to the AV node, then there's a bundle of phase, little delay is out here, and then it goes to the left bundle branch, right bundle branch to stimulate the right ventricle and the left ventricle, and left bundle branch divides into left anterior fascicle and left posterior fascicle, and there is also a septal fascicle which supplies the interventricular septum in certain cases. So, and also I have told you that the depolarization occurs from left to right, and interventricular septum is the first thing to depolarize in the ventricles. Okay, so this is the interventricular septum, and it is myocardium, and when the impulse has reached AV node, after that IVS is the first one to get depolarized from left to right. That is why when it is getting depolarized from left to right, so you can see V1 is out here, V2 is out here, V3, V4, V5 is there will be tip, and V6. So that is how a small r is formed. Where is it? Yeah. So this is a small r, which is because of interventricular septum depolarization, and at the same time when this small r is forming, there is a small q forming in the lateral leads, lead 1, AVL, okay, V6. So small q is forming out there. So you have to remember small r and a small q in V5, small r in V1, they are the same thing, okay, electrically, because the impulse is going from left to right, so it is going towards V1. So V records the positive small r, and reciprocal small q is recorded by the lateral leads, lead 1, lead AVL, V5, V6, and there can be slight aberration, like little bit of difference can be there from ECG to ECG, from patient to patient, depending on what other diseases the patient has. Sometimes you will see a pathological Q wave in lead V5, V6, lead 1 AVL. So that will mean that the interventricular septum is hypertrophied, okay, because now you just imagine like there is a small r and a small q in V5, V6 and small r in V1, and now there is hypertrophy of interventricular septum. So cardiac hypertrophy is of different types. Sometimes there is a septal hypertrophy, isolated septal hypertrophy, and in that this will act like a bulky LV muscle also, okay. So you will get a, instead of getting a small r, you will get a good r, and instead of getting a small q in V5, V6, you will get a good q, and you might confuse it with the lateral wall MI, fully evolved phase of lateral wall MI. We will come to that in detail. So you have to keep that in mind and always come back to the circle, always, okay. So all this we have done. This is how do you take the leads on the right side, and this is important. V3R, V4R especially, they are important for diagnosing right ventricular infarction. And if there are changes in V3R, V4R, there is ST elevation, it denotes right ventricular infarction, and it is a serious thing, means the patient's RV has been compromised and the ejection fraction is low and the outcome is not good, and there will be more mortality and more morbidity in such patients. And yeah, we'll come to that later on. So calibration I've told you, and all these things we have discussed, and I'll just skip through these. And you should remember LV dominates the electrical activity. So QRS is sum total of electrical activity of the RV and the LV. But the left ventricle is very bulky, RV is not very bulky. So left ventricle dominates. Whatever QRS is being produced, the left ventricle contributes more and right ventricle contributes less. And it is more so true when we are talking about those leads over the LV. LV will also change the ECG pattern in V1, V2, V3, but to a lesser extent. And now V1, V2 are slightly over, they are over the right ventricle, okay, partially over the right ventricle. So RV impulses will be picked up better by V1, V2. So if there is right ventricular hypertrophy, the V1, V2 they will record tall R, okay. So and reciprocal small q will be seen in lateral leads. So this is very important. And now you might be getting confused that I said ki LV will dominate the QRS activity in all the leads. In the last lecture also I had said, and it is true. But like we have saying, like in Hindi we have a saying, "Ghar ka kutta gali ka kutta gali mein sher hota," something like that. So right ventricle is very vestigial, but V1, V2 are over right ventricle. So so V1, V2 become very bold and they record a good R if the RV is hypertrophied or the interventricular septum is hypertrophied. Okay. So this we have discussed. So this is a transition zone. You have to remember between V3 and V4. Transition zone is simply when R wave becomes taller than the S wave in the anterior chest leads. Okay. So this is important. Now if the R wave is tall in V1, V2 because of right ventricular hypertrophy, the transition zone will shift from V3, V4 to V2, V3 or V1, V2. That is called counterclockwise rotation. We had discussed in the previous ECG lecture stream yesterday. You are standing at the foot end of the patient. For me, the patient's feet are here and the patient's body is there and I am looking. So there is a counterclockwise rotation. Okay. And if there is marked deviation of this transition zone from V3 V4 to V5 V6, or the transition zone is between V5 V6 or V4 V5, that is called clockwise rotation. So clockwise rotation, counterclockwise rotation, and the causes we have discussed. So for counterclockwise rotation, right ventricular hypertrophy, WPW, posterior wall MI, LAHP, shift of the septum to the right, and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and sometimes dextrocardia can also cause counterclockwise rotation. Now we can go into depth of all these things, how they will cause counterclockwise rotation. Now we will just pick up one or two causes. Now think of LAHB, left anterior hemiblock. So how is left anterior hemiblock causing counterclockwise rotation? So this is counterclockwise rotation. Now lead 1 is out here, 0 degree, LBB, left bundle branch block is there. Let us say we'll discuss this again in another lecture about the bundle branches blocks, and you might not understand that. So when left anterior fascicle is blocked, okay, so the electrical impulse will be going like that, okay, towards from left posterior fascicle. So that is why the shift of this transition zone can occur in a counterclockwise rotation, because the impulse is going away from V1 V2. Okay, left anterior fascicle is superior laterally, left posterior fascicle is lying infero-medially. So you remember that circle again, come back to that circle. At plus 90 degree, the impulse is, let us say, assume the impulse is rising and going towards 0 degree or minus 30 degree. Okay, so it is causing more of positivity towards V5 V6 and less of positivity in V1 V2. So that will cause a counterclockwise rotation. It might be little difficult to understand at this point, but slowly it will make sense. Then again, clockwise rotation, if there is a IVCD. IVCD is secondary to myocardial degeneration. Now IVCD is interventricular conduction defect. We use this term whenever some ECG change is not fitting into any of these diagnoses like RBB, LBB, acute MI. So you will call it IVCD, interventricular conduction defect. Okay, and yeah, so now clockwise rotation. So just a sec guys, just 2 minutes.
अनिकेत ने देखो क्या क्या।
Okay guys, so we are back and I'll continue. So clockwise rotation, sorry for the small delay interruption because I had to send Eric's paper to answer sheet to his teacher by WhatsApp. He was giving an exam. Now he has also joined us, and so we'll continue. So causes of clockwise rotation: IVCD, RV, heart disease. Okay, now you just imagine there is a right ventricular heart disease and suddenly right ventricular heart disease is there. Now right ventricle has to make R wave in V1 V2. Now RV is diseased. Let us say the positivity of R wave has decreased and positivity of V1 V2 has decreased. So there is unopposed activity of the left ventricle and the clockwise rotation will happen. Okay, so that is how you have to imagine. And this will keep on increasing. The R wave amplitude will keep on increasing from V1 to V6. V1, V5 R wave is the tallest, and V6 it is slightly less than in V5. So this you have to remember. V5R is the tallest. So now we come to the MIs, and sorry, we have to talk about axis also. We'll discuss the axis first and then we'll talk about the MI. Now this is the normal axis. Again go back to the circle in your mind, and SA has fired and it is going towards lead 2. So lead 2 records a very good R wave and a good T wave. Okay, lead 1 similarly a good R wave, but not the vector is not directly towards lead 1. So it is a shorter R wave than less tall R wave than in lead 2. Similarly, impulse is coming like this. So in lead 3 also there is a R wave, but not as tall as lead 2. So if you want to comment on any arrhythmia or shape of any wave, P wave or QRS complex or something, so lead 2 is very good and V1 is very good. Why V1? Because the atrium get separated in V1. In V1, right atrium is denoted as a positive upstroke and left atrium is inverted. Okay, so that is very nice. And if you want to look for right atrial hypertrophy, right atrial enlargement or left atrial enlargement, then you look in V1. V1 there is a negative P wave, there is left atrial enlargement. There is an upright P wave and no negative component. The right atrial electrical forces are dominating the left atrial, overpowering the left atrial electrical activity, and that you will see in P pulmonale. And if there is a P pulmonale, so this P in lead 2 will be more than 2.5 millivolts, 2.5 small squares. Okay. Now this is right axis deviation. Now see, the axis has deviated and the heart is rotated in such a way, or because of the conduction defect there is such a rotation, electrical rotation. Okay, so there is no physical rotation, there is an electrical rotation of the heart, and you see the vector is now towards lead 3. So it is a very good R wave, more taller than the normal lead 2. So lead 2 R is there, but it is less than in lead 3, and again it is going away from lead 1. So in lead 1 there is a very small R. Lead 1 is not happy, it is saying the impulse is going away from her. So lead 1 denotes records a very small R wave, and there is a deep S. Why deep S? Because inferior and lateral leads, they lie in opposition. So I said in the last lecture, if something positive is happening in lateral leads, negative will happen in inferior leads. Something in positive is happening in inferior leads, 2, 3 AVF, positive is happening, it's more positive, there is more negative in lead 1. So lead 1 there is a S wave, very deep S wave. Usually you won't see a very deep S wave in lead 1 because the vector is slightly like this. Okay, so it is going towards lead 2, lead 1, it is like this. Okay, from SA node. So you have to visualize it, you have to extend your imagination. So you have to learn to use lot of imagination, lot of mnemonics if you want to really master ECG, and for that matter any disease process. You have to visualize how the RBCs are going, how they are coming out of the bone marrow. If there is bone marrow fibrosis, how a teardrop cell is forming, the RBC is squeezing through it and it is going into the system, vascular system, and that is why there are teardrop cells in the peripheral smear. So like that you have to use your imagination, and then you will not forget. Now there are different ways to find the axis. Now this is the most important lecture, guys, so please pay attention, and this is the most important lecture. And axis, okay, every day you will talk about axis, you will be thinking about axis, and it is very important. And this funda has to be very clear, because almost in every disease affecting the myocardium or the heart, the axis is affected. You think of anything, so you think of MI, inferior MI, anterior MI, the axis will change. In anterior MI there will be right axis deviation, because the left ventricular mass has gone, so lead 1 has become negative, AVF becomes more positive. We talked about it in the last lecture. Inferior wall MI, there is a LAD, left axis deviation, right bundle branch block, right axis deviation, left bundle branch block, left axis deviation, LAHB, LAD, LPFB, RAD. Okay, so like that you have to think. And almost in every condition you will see the axis is affected. COPD, the axis is shifted to the right. In COPD patient, this patient presenting with pulmonary embolism, the axis will shift furthermore towards the right side. So, and you will see S1, Q3, T3 pattern. So, we will discuss about these disorders in detail in the subsequent lectures, but I am just sensitizing you to these conditions. Now, this is something in axis, and which I have come to a conclusion. So, I tell my interns and JRs that these are my laws, I call it James law, but you should not write this in your exam. There is nothing like James law, and but this is what I have observed, and it always works. It works for me, it will work for you also. So lead 1 and AVF, if lead 1 and AVF they are positive, okay, then tallest R is the axis. Now there are many ways to determine the axis, and we'll discuss this in the next few slides. So a very rough way of telling the axis is, look in lead 1, lead 1 is at 0 degree. Look in AVF, AVF is at plus 90 degree. So if lead 1 is positive and AVF is positive, the axis will lie in this quadrant, okay, 0 degree to 90 degree. This one, this is a normal axis quadrant. From 0 degree to minus 90 degree, this is LAD quadrant, left axis deviation quadrant. From plus 90 to 180 degrees, this is RAD quadrant, right axis deviation quadrant. So because of some pressure increase in the right ventricle, hypertrophy of right ventricular dilatation, pulmonary artery hypertension, pulmonary embolism, all these things will cause the axis to shift from this normal quadrant into this quadrant, okay, anterior MI into this quadrant. This is extreme RAD. Some people call it extreme LAD. You will see in congenital heart diseases or very, very bad COPD. Okay, so this is one way. So what you will see is, if lead 1 is positive and AVF is positive, then tallest R is the axis. You don't have to use too much of calculations. You don't have to think too much. So rough way, 1 is positive, AVF is positive, axis is normal. So it will be always true. Okay. Then first is quadrant. Then tallest R is the axis if lead 1 and AVF are positive. So that is another thing. Then third way to find the axis is, see, you should remember all these methods will work, but still you can be wrong, okay. But if more of these are positive, then more the chance that your axis determination is very important, and soon you will become so smart in determining the axis, just like a treadmill TMT paper gives the axis, plus 31, plus 32 and plus 62 minus 33 axis deviation. So like that you will become so smart in determining the axis if you listen to this lecture nicely, okay. And till the end we will be talking about this axis only and how the axis has to be determined. And I will tell you, these are my observations, but they work, and they work as good as the ECG machine gives you the diagnosis. So then next way is, look for the most isoelectric complex in lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, okay. Most isoelectric, when we talk of isoelectric, this is a very good ECG, and I've spent the whole of 2 days afternoon finding ECGs for you people and copying photos from Shamroth, Leo Shamroth, my favorite book. That's the ECG Bible. And if you want to really become a master of ECGs, look for the older edition of Leo Shamroth, and that is the best book. Now they have come up with a very fat big book of Shamroth edition, and I didn't find it very impressive. But the older one, the green book with the green cover, Leo Shamroth, I think the 7th edition or something, and if you can get hold of that one, that's the best book. It talks about how to determine the axis of the P wave, how to determine the axis of the QRS complex, how to determine the axis of the T wave ST segment. Okay, so there are lot of things, and if you look at the ECG paper, in the end it gives a diagnosis. Okay, P wave axis, QRS axis, and T wave axis. Okay, and sometimes they determine the ST segment axis also, but usually it is P, QRS, and T wave axis. But right now you should remember we are just talking about QRS axis. We are not talking about P wave axis. I'll talk about P wave axis in one of the separate lectures, and if you know how to determine the axis of the P wave, you can diagnose tetralogy of Fallot and Eisenmenger's and a lot of other cardiac disorders which you don't talk about in a routine regular way. So look for the most isoelectric complex. Now what do you mean by isoelectric? Isoelectric is where R wave is equal to S wave, where R wave equals S wave. Okay, so now you see, and for axis you have to just look in first 6 leads, lead 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF. Now you see in lead 1 there is a R wave and there is a S wave, but R is taller, much taller than the S wave, so this is not isoelectric. Lead 2 doesn't have a S wave, so we are not taking it as isoelectric. Lead 3 has a Q wave and there is a R wave. Now remember, Q wave is a negative wave, but it is not a S wave. Okay, so you cannot use Q wave as the negative component. You cannot minus R from a Q wave or Q from a R wave and to determine the axis or make it isoelectric. So if there is a Q wave, that is not a part of the diagnostic criteria for diagnosing axis, for determining the axis. So from axis point of view, lead 3 is just positive only, there is no S wave. Okay, hope you got it. Then see, in AVR everything is inverted and QRS is of normal duration. Okay, and T is inverted, so I know there is no junctional rhythm in this ECG and there is an inverted P, so it's fine. The SA is firing and AVR is away at -150. SA is out here. Impulse is always going away from AVR, so AVR is unhappy. It is making a negative P, negative QS complex and a negative T wave, which is totally fine, totally normal. If something is positive in AVR, you have to think of some anomaly, some abnormality is there. Now we come to AVL. Yes, AVL is isoelectric. In the circle AVL is, anybody? Sorry, there is a lot of buffering. Nikhil, Ranjana, anybody in the audience, please tell me where AVL is in that circle, how many degrees? So there's a lot of buffering, guys, so I think continue because the comments will come very late to me in the phone. Okay, so the lead perpendicular to the isoelectric complex lead, that is the axis. Now AVL is at -30 degrees. Okay, so what is perpendicular to -30? +60 degrees. Okay, now you apply James law also in this ECG. So axis is +60 degree. Okay, see, lead 1 is isoelectric, and what is perpendicular to AVL? AVL is at -30 degree. So -30 to 0, 30 degrees, then plus 60 degrees lead 2, so total is 90 degrees. So perpendicular to lead AVL is lead 2. Okay, now tallest star is the axis, James law. So you see the tallest star in lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF. Okay, so the tallest star is the axis. So once you do determine the axis like that, then with the isoelectric funda, and then fourth method of determining the axis, you draw a rectangle along the x-axis and the y-axis in that circle, and the diagonal of that is the axis. So how do I tell you? Okay, in this ECG, now you see in this ECG, lead 1 is negative. Why we say negative? Because there is a small r and a very deep s. So s is deeper than the r wave. Okay, so lead 1 is plotted as at 180 degree. Then you see in AVF, AVF is freaking out. It's very tall, positive, totally positive, is happy that lead 1 has become negative. Okay, so AVF is positive out here, positive, 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 negative, negative. So it's a right axis deviation. Okay, so like that you have to determine the axis changes. Okay, so now in this ECG you minus r from s. So let us say s is 5, 6, 7 negative squares, and lead and r wave is 2 small squares. So 7 minus 2 is 5, minus 5. Okay, so in this circle you can remember make imaginary lines, small equally distanced, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this much is the horizontal line. So then you look in AVF. AVF is, there is no negative wave, no S wave is there. So 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe little more, 21. So 21. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 21. Okay, so you draw it like that. And so let's say 5 is this much only, minus 5. This is the center. Minus 5, lead 1 is minus 5. So this much is minus 5. And we have to make 4 times. So let us say this is, so you draw a rectangle. So minus 5 and 20 or 21. So we have drawn this rectangle. Okay, and the diagonal of this rectangle, that will be the axis. Okay, so the axis will be roughly round at, so this is a rectangle. Okay, so the diagonal is coming at around 120 degrees. Okay, so that is how you determine the axis. So first is you determine the quadrant where the axis is lying, then you determine if lead 1 is positive, AVF is positive. If yes, the tallest r is the axis. Fine, it will work 100% of the times. If still you are in doubt, you see the isoelectric complex perpendicular to that, that is the axis. Okay, so then you can make a rectangle, how I taught you just now, and the diagonal is the axis. So these are different ways to determine the axis. Then this is another method which I think is fed in the computerized machines and in TMT machines when they record the ECG, and they give you the diagnosis. So it's called the tan theta method. And at this point, special thanks to Dr. Saurav and for helping me with this tan theta method. And this is Dr. Saurav's handwriting, and he taught me how to determine the axis using the tan theta, and always give credit to the person who taught you. And I wanted to learn this tan theta method for a very long time, and somehow I could not find anybody who could teach me, and on the net also I searched, but eventually Dr. Saurav taught me. And special congratulations to Dr. Saurav for getting a DM nephrology seat yesterday. So okay, so coming to tan theta method. So in tan theta we have to see the theta. It's a very confusing, I am not very good in trigonometry, but whatever I learnt, okay, I will tell you. So basically this is the theta, this angle is called the theta. Okay, so let us say lead 1 is 4 squares, 4 small, this thing, 4 small squares. Lead 1 is positive. Okay, so you draw 4 out here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and lead AVF is positive, 2 positive, 1, 2. So you draw a rectangle. Okay, it will come to same thing, the rectangle part also, but many a times the rectangle thing will not work. So tan theta is the best. So if you know tan theta, you will need a calculator. I will show you how we will do it. So lead 1 is 4 positive, AVF is 2 positive. Okay, so the tan theta method is you draw the rectangle, just like I taught you about the rectangle. You draw the rectangle like this, and then you draw the diagonal. We need a triangle for using this method. So you draw the diagonal, and then this rectangle is divided into two triangles, equal size triangles. Okay, and then we have to find out how much this angle is. Okay, that will give us the axis, and that is the theta. So we will apply tan theta method. So tan theta says you divide height by base. Okay, so now this is the triangle, this is the triangle. So base is this one. Okay, so base is 4, and this is the height, but this height is belonging to another triangle. We are not looking about that, and we are talking about this triangle. So this height is 2 small squares. Okay, this is 4, this is 2. So tan theta equals to height by base 2 by 4 1 by 2. Okay, so we got this equation. So finally tan theta equals to 1 by 2. And how we will determine the theta? Then you will have to use the scientific calculator, that is tan inverse. Tan inverse equals to 1 by 2, and that will give you the degree. So I will just have to bring up the calculator. So calculator. Okay, so I have the calculator out here, and I hope you can see. So tan inverse. So you have to look for tan inverse. On the phone it is nicely given tan inverse, but here how do I find out? Okay, I think I have to click something else also, and tan theta. No guys, sorry, I think this one will not work, but I will show you in the phone. Okay, so how you have to do. So you can see this screen. Eric, दिख रहा है? Calculator दिख रहा है? So you see this screen, calculator. Okay, and in that you go to scientific, and you can see tan raised to the power -1. So that is tan inverse. Okay, so you click on tan inverse. So out here you can see a tan and bracket. So we will divide 1 by 2. Okay, so 1 divided by 2, and you see the degree 26.5. Okay, so this tan theta is that accurate. So the machine said 27 degrees, as you can see, but the tan theta said it is 26.5. So you will become this good in calculating the degree shift, the axis shift. Okay, so that is the tan theta method, and I will come to, okay, one sec. Okay, so I will come back to this, and I will give you my one observation. And supposing lead AVF, now see lead AVF is very tall, there is no S wave, so it is definitely at plus 90 only. Now let us say lead 1 was also positive, but there was small S wave. Let us say S wave was 1 small square. So in that case I will not consider lead 1 as at 0 degree. I will just assume there is a small s in lead 1. Imagine this is a very deep S wave. Let us say there is a small s in lead 1. So for calculating the axis, just like in tan theta, lead 1 is at 0 degree, but there is a small S wave. So I will shift it slightly towards the right side. I will bring it to 10 degrees. Instead of 0 degree, I will bring it to 10 degrees. And you will be right. And if you have to determine the axis will be shifted by 10 degrees. And I will show in some other ECG. And it works just like tan theta. And that is how you determine the axis. And it is very important to know all these methods, because all these methods are infallible, and you have to know all these methods. Now you see this ECG. Can anybody tell me the axis shift in this ECG? Anybody? I think we will today just talk about axis and MIs, and in detail we'll talk about maybe in tomorrow or on Monday, because it's almost 1 hour now. So I'll try to keep the ECG's lectures short, because our attention span is just around half an hour. So can anybody tell me what is the axis in this ECG? Ranjana, Dr. Rashida, anybody? Now you see in the ECG, you look at this third complex. Okay, this third complex, it is broad. It is not like this normal complexes. It is broad. So this is from the ventricles, and whenever there is a ectopic, whenever there is a ectopic from the ventricles, it will be broad. It will be more than 3 small squares. That is how you diagnose a VPC, ventricular premature complex. And if they occur in 2 or 3 occur in succession, that is a very dangerous thing to happen, and a VT can set in from there. Okay, now the same recording you see in different leads. This is a VPC, ventricular premature complex. It's a broad complex, and you can find out from where the complex is arising. Okay, and we'll talk about in left bundle branch and right bundle branch, but just now we have discussed. So you remember ectopic arising from the right ventricle, it will look like a LBB. Ectopic from the left ventricle, it will look like a RBB. So it's ulta. So if the ectopic is looking like a right bundle branch block, it is from the left ventricle ectopic, and if it is looking like a left bundle branch block, that ectopic only, then it is from the right ventricle, because the vector is changing, and we'll talk about the blocks. We have to know, because right now it is not making much sense. So, and you remember, whenever there is VPC, it is an irritable myocardium, and irritable myocardium means there could be myocarditis, there could be MI happening, or something else which is irritating, dilated cardiomyopathy. So it's not a good thing to have VPCs. Okay, so in this you see this VPC. Now we'll look at lead 1. Lead 1 is negative, R wave is small, S is deeper, and maybe lead 1 is let us say R is 1, 2, 2.5, and S is around 4 degrees. This is the isoelectric line. Isoelectric line, and I told you where all the complexes start and end. P starts, ends, QRS starts, ends, T starts, ends. Okay, this is isoelectric. So let us say 4 minus 2, just to make it easy. 4 minus 2, 1. So lead 1 is minus 2, negative. Okay, so you will plot it. Remember that circle again. So 2 markings you make equidistance, and that is it, so on the negative side of the lead 1. Then you look in AVF. So 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF. AVF is very happy because lead 1 has become negative. So there is no S wave in AVF. Okay, so AVF is 5, 10, 11, 12. It is 12 positive. There is no S wave, nothing to minus. So AVF is 12 positive. So lead 1 is this much, AVF is 12. Okay, so you draw the rectangle. So the axis in this case will be round, maybe 100 degrees. Okay, so because 90 degrees plus 90 is AVF, so axis is shifting like this. A very long rectangle like this. So axis won't shift much. So there is a long rectangle. The diagonal will come at around the same place, around 100 degrees. So that is how we determine the axis. Now whenever you are looking at the axis, you have to think why the axis has changed. Now can anybody find any abnormality in this ECG? See, when you look at the ECG like this, 1 to 3 AVF, and then you see V1 to V6. So rate, rhythm and axis, you are just focusing on rate, rhythm, axis from 1 to 6 leads. Then V1 to V6, you have to look at the R wave progression and QT interval and things like that in first degree, second degree, third degree AV block, if they are there or not. And in V1 you look at biphasic P wave. Just keep on making mental notes. and by the time you have interpreted around 100 ECGs based on that circle and whatever I've taught you, you will be pros. Okay, so now you see R waves are here. It looks fine. Look in V1, there is no R wave, it's a Q wave. 2, it's a Q wave, deep Q wave. Lead 3, Q wave. Okay, so it is anteroseptal MI. V1 to V3, anteroseptal it is. So it is anteroseptal MI. Maybe the patient just recently had an anteroseptal MI. So there is a right axis deviation, and there are ectopics, ventricular ectopics. So the myocardium is still irritable. So you have to keep a record of this patient and make sure the patient keeps on coming and showing you regularly. Raghav, are you talking about this ECG? No, this is not left axis deviation, bacha. Lead 1 is negative towards 180. AVF is positive plus 90. So it's in the right axis deviation quadrant, and you don't see R waves in V1 to V3. So it is anteroseptal MI. So I had told you anterior MIs will shift the axis to the right, and inferior MIs will shift the axis to the left. So it is very interesting, and if you know the axis, and it's fun. You can play with your thoughts, what is happening in the ECG. You can actually look into the myocardium just like an echo machine, and you can see the ECG. You can see the heart on the ECG. Okay, now we come to a very interesting ECG. Okay, so just see what this ECG is showing. Raghav, tell me, anybody else? Please be active in the comments. It makes if I get the feedbacks, and it makes me get more ideas, and I can talk more and help you more. So lead 1 is isoelectric. Lead 1, see R wave and the S wave out here. R is almost as good as S wave. Okay, and look in AVF. Okay, it is S is deeper. Okay, S is little deep, but it is R is also almost of the same size, and you are seeing the same complexes in almost all the leads, first 6 leads: isoelectric, 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 isoelectric. So in such ECGs, you will say, sir, the axis is indeterminate. You cannot make out the axis. Okay, it is indeterminate axis, and even in the machine, the computerized machine, it will write axis indeterminate. You cannot calculate the axis in such a ECG. So that you have to keep in mind. Sometimes you will be given this type of ECG also. Anything else you are seeing in this ECG? Any other abnormality? We'll discuss about left atrial and right atrial enlargements. So now you see this P wave is broad. Okay, and it is almost touching more than 3 small squares. 1, 2, 3. It should be less than 3 small squares. P wave in lead 2. Okay, and the first half of P wave is formed by the ascending limb of P. It is formed by the right atrium, and after that this is right atrium, and then this is P, the descending limb, that is formed by the left atrium. So P wave in lead 2, right atrium, left atrium. Okay, so if the right atrium is enlarged, now you see this is the P wave. Okay, you have to imagine what like I am doing. So this is a P wave. The right atrium is enlarged, like in COPD, cor pulmonale it is causing. So electrically right atrium is going up. Okay, and there is left atrium also which has to contract. There is some time duration for the left atrium to contract and make a complex. Okay, some part of the P wave. Right atrium is rising high, and but it is happening while in the same zone where the left atrium has to contract. So the duration will not widen. So in P pulmonale, the P wave duration will not widen up. It will go high up, but in the same duration of the P wave, normal P wave. Okay, and more than 2.5 small squares is P pulmonale, and such patients will also have a right bundle branch block. It's all a package deal. Destroyed lung, post TBC sequelae, bad COPD, bad interstitial lung disease, pulmonary embolism, something, pulmonary artery hypertension, increasing the right ventricular pressures. So you will get a P pulmonale and atrial fibrillation because of the right atrial fibrillation, and you will get a right bundle branch block. Okay, so these all occur hand in hand usually. So you can see in V1 there is a right bundle branch block. We'll talk about soon because it's important. We are missing so much of fun in these ECGs. So I was talking about P pulmonale. So P pulmonale, it will go more high but less wide. Okay. If there is a left atrial enlargement, so this is the P wave, left atrium has to dilate, it has to enlarge, and it will become like this. Okay. So the duration up is not happening, the height is same, and in fact when the P wave left atrial contraction time comes, right atrium has contracted, then left atrium contraction starts. Okay. So you might see a little saddle out here on the P wave top, on the tip of the P wave you can see a notch like this sometimes, and there is a widening of the P wave duration like in this ECG. Okay, this is a very good ECG. So you see a wide P wave and the height is good, height is normal, but the duration of the distal side, let us say this is the center of the P wave. Okay, and this is more, this is less. So this is left atrial enlargement. Now we have seen this left atrium just in lead 2, and see it was so difficult for me to explain this. Now we'll just make it happen. Look in lead V1. See in V1 what is happening to P wave. So R wave is, so the P wave, the positive part of the P wave, it is not there because the left atrium has just taken over the electrical activity of the right atrium. So the left atrium is firing more. So there is a negative P wave in V1. Sometimes in V2 also we will see a negative P wave. So you are seeing a P wave. Out here you are seeing a small nudge, small notch you are seeing of the right atrial contraction, positive notch. Okay, that is right atrium. This is left atrium, but it is very prominent. It is overpowering the right atrium. So this is left atrial enlargement. Okay, and always try not to use the word left atrial hypertrophy. Always use it left atrial enlargement, because in the atrium there is hardly any muscle to hypertrophy. Anything else you are saying? There is a right bundle branch block. So we'll talk about the blocks later on in the next lecture. Okay, so we'll just finish in 5 minutes, and this is another ECG. Now you see the axis. So lead 1 is isoelectric. Okay, roughly R equals to S. So lead 1 is at, remember that circle, be grounded, come back to lead 1, 0 degree. Okay, isoelectric complex you have found. So stick to that. What is perpendicular to isoelectric? Lead 1, plus 90 degrees. Okay, so now see, at this point, now you will say, sir, isoelectric and perpendicular could mean minus 90 also. You are right, it could be minus 90 or plus 90. Isoelectric, perpendicular to isoelectric could be minus 90 or plus 90. Then you look in AVF. AVF is positive, so it's not minus 90, it's plus 90. Okay, so the axis is around 90 degrees. Now again you can apply James law also out here. So no, you cannot apply James law because this is the isoelectric. So like I said, you have to apply these different ways of finding the axis in different situations. And now you see out here there is a right bundle branch block, and maybe there is a biatrial, little bit of biatrial enlargement. Okay, anything else you are saying? Probably there is a subtle MI also happening. You can see a valence sign and mild coving is there. Okay, and the axis is trying to shift towards the right side, anterior MI, right axis deviation. Okay, so keep in mind that. Now this axis, now please look into this ECG and see the axis. Lead 1 is positive because there is no S wave, calibration is normal. Lead 1 is positive, so it is positive by 5 and 5, 10, 11. So lead 1 is plus 11. Look in AVF. Where is AVF? Out here it is negative. Okay, there is no R wave. There is a R wave. The slightest upstroke will be the R wave. This is not a Q wave. Had this been Q wave, and then you wouldn't have been able to tell the axis. Okay, it would have been difficult. So see the axis AVF, it's negative, so you plot it at minus 90 degree. So now we know the quadrant. So it is from lead 1 is positive from 0 degree to minus 90 degree. So it is a left axis deviation. Can we further refine our finding? try to look for the most isoelectric complex. Lead 1 is sort of little isoelectric. Sometimes you have to do like this. So lead 1 is positive, but there is a S wave also. Okay, so if at gunpoint I am asked like tell me the isoelectric in this, I will say lead 2. Okay, because lead 2 has S wave also, but I will give more importance to the positive part and less importance to the negative part. So what does that mean? Lead 1 is at plus 60 degree, it is more positive, so the axis is deviating little bit. Okay, so lead 1 is positive, AVF is negative, so there is a LAD, but little bit of axis will be towards positive side, little bit of left axis deviation will be there. So that is how you will determine. Then you can draw the rectangle. Definitely you can draw the rectangle in that circle and determine, and you can apply the tan theta method also. So tan theta will be, let us say this is 6 to make it easy, 6 minus 6, okay, minus 6. So base is lead 1, lead 1 is always the base. Okay, so lead 1 is, let us say it is 10 to make it easy the calculation, but if you are given in the exam you have to calculate this small squares properly and accurately. So it will be height divided by base, so you have to divide this by this. Okay, and then you determine the, by tan theta method you can determine accurately the axis. So I think we'll end out here, and tomorrow if possible we'll try to have another lecture on blood supply of the heart and how the blood supply is blocked and it causes different types of MI, and how it is important to know the blood supply of the heart and the different branches, coronaries, and S1, S2, D1, D2, what they mean, and how we determine. You can be so accurate, you can tell, sir, out MI is occurring out here, it is a high LAD block, this septal branch is blocked, this D2 is blocked, so it's that good. So just stay connected to these lectures, and we'll end the today's stream out here. And thank you guys for watching, and please to hit the subscribe button and join the channel. You will be notified whenever we upload new videos, and please make sure you subscribe and like the video and share with your friends. This video will stay online, and you can come back and revise whenever you want, so it will stay there only. Save the link in your notepad or somewhere. You can use OneNote to save the links, or you can open a Word file and copy the link and paste it there and save it. So just by clicking there you can go to this video again, and hit the bell icon also. So thank you for watching, and stay happy, stay blessed, stay safe. God bless. Bye bye.